You all know the routine. You all are either founders that are looking to find out the greatest tactics for growth that exist anywhere, or you are investors who are looking to find the founders who are growing the fastest, because you know that like every single TechCrunch article is about VCs and zombie companies, or VCs whose companies are not scaling, or VCs that are like, ah, when are we going to get some returns for LPs? Like every single article. And you're saying to yourself, I don't want to do that anymore. What I want to do now is I want to find founders that are growing at like 100, 200, 300%. And I want to help support those founders, or I just want to invest in those founders and I want to be close to them. Well, the wonderful thing is you are close to them today. So every single Monday, I bring in one of our fastest growing founders. We take lessons from things that have happened in the previous week, and I kind of bring those lessons into Expert Dojo. And then I bring on a founder, and the founder's really good. And I wanted to bring on Adeshina early so that he's here and he's a part of it, even though normally it's just me spouting out about everything else. And rather than taking a lesson at the beginning of this, before we kick off, I want to actually lead out with what's Shashank got to say. Okay, I want to lead out with a little talk. Hey, by the way, you can see me okay, right?
Yes,
I think
yes.
it's maybe Shashank's internet connection. Okay. So what I wanted to do was lead out with the fact of about how do you deal with a market that's this difficult? Like, what do you do? And like, here's a really interesting fact that's actually going to make no startups feel sorry for the people I'm talking about at all, but the people themselves feel sorry for themselves. Okay. So venture capitalists, the way that they generally work is that they have they get money from LPs, right? They take that money from LPs and then they bring that money to the market, and then they go to founders, and then the founders grow, and then hopefully they get like 2-3 times their money back over like a 5 to 7 year period. And because most founders are pitching to LP, pitching to general partners of funds, they don't feel that actually the general partners of funds go through the same thing as them, but actually they do. There's literally no difference between a general partner of a fund and a startup. Actually, the only difference is that if a general partner of a fund doesn't have money, then there's no product, right? That is the product, right? While a founder doesn't necessarily have to have money to be successful, it just helps be able to turbocharge the founder to where they're actually looking to go to. And the last 3 years have been brutal. Brutal, 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 brutal. I read an article this morning which said that there were something like 15,000 to 18,000 individual investors that had invested in the United States like 2 years ago, and that was down to like 12,000 this year. And so we're going to see that number drop, 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 drop. Why? Because there's like 1,000 reasons. Number one, we have an election, right? Who wants to put money in a fund during an election in the US? Number two, we had interest rates that provided deposit returns in the US of 5%. And I'm sorry, but a lot of funds are not earning 5% per year. So why would you put your money in a fund when you can get really good money there? Number three, a lot of funds have underperformed, not even because of their fault, but because we haven't had exits, we haven't had IPOs, we haven't had acquisitions. It's been a terrible market. So when you're a founder and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, this sucks for me, I promise you it sucks way more for the general partners trying to raise their $10 million funds, $20 million funds, $30 million funds. Now, where am I going this week? I'm going to Malta. Why am I going to Malta? Because number one, the government asked, I'm going to speak at a startup competition, which would be nice. But number two, and it is right on the front of my mind, is because there's lots of rich people in Malta. That's it. And so they're not here. They're not in Santa Monica. So I mean, I could wait for them and I could be like, yeah, sure, let's just see what happens. But that would be stupid. That would be going against what I'm telling founders to do. So I am going to get my skinny Irish ass on a 19-hour flight with a stop in Amsterdam and a 4-hour layover in economy so I can make my way to this teeny weeny little place called Malta, who happen to be very favorable on Web3, so I can meet a ton of people who love paying no tax. And who are the only people who love paying no tax? People with money. Nobody else gets the chance. So I want every startup to take that lesson. I actually want every general partner, if you're watching here, to take that lesson too, is we got to go looking. You can't expect it to come to us. We can't expect the world to do us a favor. It's been 3 years, 3 very difficult years where funding has slowly dried up. And these 3 years are on the back of COVID, which was another 2 years, which were incredibly difficult as well. So we really have 5 unbelievably difficult years that nobody's talking about because it's just too difficult to talk about. And so how you react today is going to dictate where you're going to be in 3 to 5 years' time. So are you booking flights to whatever your Malta is? Or are you hanging there, hunkering down, hoping that the storm will pass and that the world will be a better place afterwards? Because it will not. Okay? So get your ass out there, go and find it. If you're looking for customers, they are out there. You just got to look harder. If you're looking for revenue, it is out there. You just have to provide better product. If you're looking for investment, it is out there. You just have to show that what you have is worth other people investing into, whether you're a general partner like myself or whether you're a founder. And that's it. That's all I got. That's all I got. That's the start of the show. But I do really want you to take it. I want you to stick it in the front of your head. And I want you to say, if my action for today, other than watching and listening and learning from what Tradelenda have done to break through in like one of the most difficult environments and be able to like make sure that their customers love them. I'm going to go deeper into that in a second. The first thing I want you to take is you got to be the change. You got to be the change. I don't care how tired you are. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't care where you are. You got to be the change. And you got to be the change like now. It is 8 o'clock in the morning in Pacific time here in the United States. And I have been the change since 4 o'clock this morning. How long have you been doing it for? Okay, anyway, that's it. I'm done. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Are you ready?
Yes,
I'm so proud of everything you're doing. You're breaking through in one of the most difficult markets. Like I talk about difficulty in getting funding, and you must be like, hey, you want difficulty in getting funding? You come to my home. I'm going to show you what difficulty in getting funding is like. But you're busting through. And you know, the great thing, I want you to start by sharing a little bit about Tradelenda and telling everybody like what it is and what the genesis was behind building it. And obviously we've invested in you, of course. We invested in you years back. I believed in you then. I believe in you now. You're reinforcing why that was a great decision like 100 times over. But in Africa in general, it's extremely difficult to be able to grow. Like it's very hard. And so by growing, this is a little bit like the salesman selling the thing that doesn't exist right now. Some salesmen are like, well, it doesn't exist, so nobody will buy it. The other salesman will say it doesn't exist, it's a great opportunity. In the case of Africa, breaking through in Africa right now makes you the greatest superstar that the world has ever seen because it puts you in a small group. And I think that's an amazing thing. But share a little bit about Tradelenda. Talk to us a little bit about like your personal journey on building it. And then afterwards, we're going to start analyzing the growth that you've done and how you've managed to get to that growth and some of the tools that you've used so we can try and be helpful to some of the founders that are out there watching us as well. And so that we can show off a little bit to the investors.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian, for this platform. Good day, everyone who is joining us from both far and wide. My name is Adeshina Adewumi, and I'm the CEO for Tradelenda. At Tradelenda, we are actually democratizing access to finance for small and medium-scale businesses across emerging markets. We strongly believe that the engine room of every economy are actually these MSMEs, who are actually creating meaningful jobs and also helping to ensure that the gross domestic product for the economics that they operate in are actually, are all high up. For context, across Africa, these MSMEs, actually create about 70 to 80% of the jobs that we have, the entire jobs that we have across the continent, which simply also means that, pay attention to them and giving them access to finance is something that is unique. Not just making money,
just
but also
define this a little bit, if you don't mind. So when you talk about these groups, are these companies which are under 5 people or under 3 people? Like, how would you define them?
So these are people who are under typically, between 2 and 5, they're also considered as mom and pop stores in
Okay.
some certain regions, and some are classified as informal, retailers or retail players.
Yeah. And so this is not a niche market. Like this is the market, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah. Please keep going. I just wanted to make sure people understand who we're talking about.
So for these small and medium businesses, we focus on those that are in the retail sector, as well as also those that are within the agricultural sectors. We picked these two core sectors because we understand the dynamic system that this two major niche space kind of helps to fuel in the economy. We're talking about the regular mom and pop stores, who are serving their various communities. We're talking about the farmers, who are actually the ones, creating the products, that is going into the market, and people now can be sure that there's no issue around, food insecurity. In that sense, there's no food shortage for them. So for us today, we've been able to grow our MSME active user base, to over 39,000 as of today. And we have over 69,000 farmers that we currently support, with input financing to be able to scale and ensure that Africa has food to feed our people.
Amazing. It's such a beautiful story because, like, we can very easily get caught up with the whole fact that we invest and we get a return and then we grow and we raise money and the money drives the revenue and the revenue increases the valuation. But actually, there's real people that are affected by all of this. And like when you talk about numbers like 69,000 people and other groups like that, that's obviously a huge, huge, huge demographic that you're going after. So talk to me a little bit about like how you've grown over the last couple of years. You started it out at the very beginning, and then you had this concept. The concept was we want to be able to provide better financing and better access to like groups of people. What was the access like at that time, and what was your differentiated product? What was your lovable product that you brought to the market that was so much better than what existed back then?
All right. So typically in this region, most traditional banks and financial institutions don't even give credit to these small and medium scale businesses. They typically ask for upfront collateral. They ask them for a whole lot of other information. But we were able to use our experience working in the financial space. I used to work with Stanbic IBTC. I've also watched my mom growing up closely, seeing her grow from a seemingly small business owner to actually, against all odds, striving in her business. And this particular business, even at some point in time, was the only source of income for our household. So watching that closely and seeing the impact that had, in my upbringing, and seeing, the potentials that we could actually do, I was able to team up with my co-founder and also attract amazing people like Expert DOJO, who have supported the vision so far to be able to, you know, fine tune the process, that allows these people to be able to get credit. So what do we do differently? We looked at various data points that we can use to be able to build a credit algorithm, which today allows these small business owners to be able to get access to credit within 6 hours, or even less than 6 hours, 1 to 6 hours. So let's just say 6 hours average. Typically it takes between 72 hours for these small business owners to even be even assessed or underwrite, whenever a request is done. But for us, we pride ourselves in saying that within 1 to 6 hours, they from request, to disbursement, within 1 to 6 hours, we are their go-to partner. And we've been able to do this for over 3 years now. One other thing that we've also
How did you do
evolved.
that? How did you do that? Let's talk about the how. So, how did you manage to take a product which was so slow and so cumbersome and actually didn't speak to immediate financial needs and be able to turn it into something that was so quick?
Okay, so we built our technology, leveraging on machine learning tools. We partnered with NVIDIA also to be able to fine tune our models, which now today allows us to be able to, offer credit in a very timely manner to these MSMEs. They don't necessarily need to know us. They don't need to engage or even access or fill any paper documents, as it is, with the traditional financial institutions. And everything, once done on our platform, generates a credit score for them. Credit score is something that in this part of the world is really not existing. It's next to nothing, right? It's not existing in this part of the world. So helping these small businesses to be able to build a credit score, which we can now use to assess them, and they can also improve on it, should their rating should be low based on the data points that we've established, is really a big deal in this part of the world. And that is what we've been able to do over the last 3 years.
Yeah, and it's also very clever because what you're doing is you're building a Trojan horse. The problem with one and done products, which is that like you put money, you finance, you do what you do. Once they have it, they have it. And yeah, sure, they may come back in the future, and yeah, you can sell them another product, but you're continually having to drag them in. It's a real pull type selling, which is incredibly difficult. And so it's so clever to build a credit score in there and to be actually leading that, because what's happening is you have this wonderful push all the time that's continually engaging with people, and you get like a Brucey bonus. You get like a second thing for free, which is that you build trust in the brand inherently. So you have a wonderful push campaign and you're building trust on the brand, and so you become ingrained in the mind of these people, not just because you did the financing, not just because you did something quickly, but because you are become their go-to financial services provider, which is very, very, very smart. And so how did you build up to 69,000 people that you managed to get on the platform? You started out at the beginning. Obviously, there's two things that you needed. Firstly, there's three things that you needed. First of all, as a founder, you had to have incredible domain expertise, tick the box. You had to have access to great machine learning and AI professionals, tick the box. You need to know what's broken and what's horribly broken, tick the box, right? So now you need the two sides of the marketplace. The first side is you have to make sure that you have the money to actually put into them, or it doesn't matter how many boxes you tick. And then number two, you have to have a great marketing strategy to build out the brand so people could understand why that Trojan horse was even important. So can you talk to us about the two sides? Because it's actually, when I was looking forward to this conversation, because for me, building one side of a marketplace is hard enough. Building two sides of it is incredibly difficult because you have to be two things to two totally different types of people who want two separate things. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so one of the things that we did right was actually, validating the market, at the forefront. We kind of tick the box in terms of how we're able to validate that there's a niche market and there's also a secured market, by financing these small businesses. You know, one reason why people don't want to give money is because they also don't want to lose their money, right? So one of those things we did was to achieve, less than 1%, non-performing loans at some point, and today we have less than 2% non-performing, with also even much more tighter and unique systems in terms of algorithms that we use to be able to rate. So what we've been able to do in this situation is we've been able to build trust by financial institutions and other asset managers who today now trust us with their funds to be able to disburse to these small and medium scale businesses. We also then opened it up to even, much more excluded people in terms of small and medium scale businesses with, excuse me, with the Sharia compliant model, which allows people to be able to do revenue financing for these small and medium scale businesses through our platform. So for those who don't want interest-based loans and facilities, they're able to agree on markups and margins, to be able to distribute these funds to the targets small and medium scale businesses. In terms of growth, we've tried out different metrics, but what we've seen really worked for us is leveraging effectively on partnerships, either through clusters of communities who already play host to this, maybe through membership for these small and medium scale businesses. And then through those partnerships, we're able to then acquire these small and medium scale businesses. And once we've done that, because we now have the right set of people, especially for those who we've successfully given out loans to, we then incentivize them to refer others. And that has really been our success, mechanism of increasing and retaining our users, because successful guys who can repay back their loans are able to refer others, and they were able to get them at very little cost of conversion in that sense.
I love that. And the easiest way to get the trust of somebody is to actually manage the trust of what you did for them previously. So by bringing in a little bit of money at the beginning and then doing exactly what you promised is the best way to get lots more money from lots more people. It's the same with venture as to what you're doing right now. How much money have you deployed so far?
So today we've deployed over $6 million to these small and medium scale businesses. And that is growing because we've also now established more, a couple of more millions that will be, domiciled very soon for us to be able to facilitate to these small businesses on a monthly basis.
Incredible. Yeah, incredible. And by the way, for anyone listening here, like it's such a challenging market over there that if you've deployed $6 million, it's the equivalent to deploying $60 million or $100 million in the US for real. Like it's that difficult to be able to get that money. So imagine going from a startup to building this out. Also, to be able to maintain non-performing loans at 1% is a ridiculous number. It's, again, unheard of. And not only is it unheard of, it's really interesting because the markets in many of the countries locally are very turbulent, right? I mean, both with high inflation and with currency fluctuations and with people going through challenges and with new people coming in through elections. Like it's extremely challenging. A lot of things which are actually outside the scope of what Tradelenda are going to be able to impact, and they've still managed to do it. So I just want to bring this back. If we're looking for reasons why they're doing incredibly well, the number one and most important reason is because they have a great product. That's the first thing. They've built an incredible product. Their founders have incredible experience in being able to do what they're doing right now. They've spent they're like Morgan Freeman, right? An overnight success at the age of 50. Like their whole lives have led to the moment of Tradelenda. And so when Tradelenda happening, yeah, they're killing it, but they're killing it because of all of the experience that they had before. Number two, it is consideration that product remains the best product. And that 1% is really important. The only thing you're really going to remember from this, other than a few of the growth hacks that we talk about, is that, wow, how they managed to maintain non-performing loans at 1% in a place like developing countries where it's incredibly hard to be able to manage. They must have an amazing product. Yeah, that's not a fluke. Number three, when we talk about like building the trust and building Trojan horses to be able to make sure that you maintain a strong engagement with your customers, they're doing an amazing job doing that. And then the differentiation of the product, you find something which is so strong and stark, and you put that out in front of your audience for your branding. So the branding is incredibly strong. We will give you an answer in 6 hours. Why would you wait 3 days? Why would anybody make you wait 3 days? Don't they understand? You need to know right now. Don't just beat your competitors by iterating like 5% or 10%. Honestly, you might as well not even exist. Crush your competitors with a product that they never even thought that could be provided to the market. That's how unicorns get built. And so what's the difference between 6 million and 60 million? Nothing. It's actually exactly the same, because they're putting systems in place for 6 million, which will also work for 60 million, which will also work for 100 million, because they've built out a great system around that. And so, okay, so talk to us a little bit about some of the other marketing techniques that you've used as well, because obviously This is great. You're crushing it. And again, I cannot emphasize enough. A lot of the time, my wife actually said this to me. I remember saying to my wife once, oh, I'm doing really well and I've got this thing and this is what we've done. And she's like, hold on just a second here. You're in a marathon, Brian. That's true. But you got to start on mile 10. Right? Now you got to finish the marathon, but you got to start on mile 10 because you're in a market where there's plenty of investors, because you got plenty of resources around you which can help you, because you have the assistance of like some great people. Mile 10. And okay, you got to run the other 20 odd miles, but you started on mile 10. And so when you're in a developing country, you're starting not even on mile 0, you're kind of starting on mile -2, right? And so the level of respect that should be given to a conversation like this should reflect the difference in the difficulty of building a unicorn that actually is represented by the journey of the marathon that needs to be run. So I respect you, man. And you're building out something incredible because you're building out the trust, you're building out the product and the systems, and you're building out the user engagement as well. And of course, your growth is huge. What's your growth going to be this year versus last year?
So already we've grown, on an average of over, 10 to 270%. In that sense, we project that by the ending of this year, we would have obviously done, about 6x growth in terms of 600% growth of what we did last year. Already, our numbers have far, over 300%, grown in terms of active user, growth that we've done already this year. And those numbers are not, going down. I think the last time I engaged, with the Expert DOJO team, which is just barely a month or so ago, we had about 31,000, users, and right now we have over 39,000. So you see that, the numbers are jumping up, right? And in terms of the SMEs category, so
that's huge.
For us, is for us to continue to increase the numbers and continue to support more. And one other thing we've also done pretty well is to now start going to the likes of DFIs, like for example, locally, we have the Development Bank of Nigeria, the Bank of Industry, who have also seen the impact, especially our distribution channels that we've also established, in different parts of the country, and we are still increasing those distribution outlets all across the country, and are now interested in giving us even much more lower cost of capital, that can now be deployed, to these small and medium scale businesses. So that is really where, we are today, and those numbers won't relent as we continue to close out on the peak period. The Q4 period is actually like the peak of the season for our target audience, and we're maximizing out those opportunities, as we
So before we dig into growth, and by the way, Shashank, this is for you. I want you to start categorizing this by percentage of growth increase versus the previous year. First thing that you have on every single one of this, Tradelenda growing at 600% versus last year. Changing the world of finance in developing countries. From now on, every single one, actually go backwards, every single one, because that's all that matters. And then what happens is the relevancy of actually digging in and trying to understand like how the company does it is really important, but also the respect of like what you've built is huge. And you can even see like the comments here that are coming in from people, like everybody sees it, Adeshina, like you're crushing it, and you're crushing it because you're following a very specific methodology. Build that great product, separate your product from everybody else, make sure everybody understands that you separated your product from everybody else by displaying it in big letters, why you're so different. Build huge trust, create a Trojan horse to go out to market, and then smash the market as hard as you can with that Trojan horse while monitoring and watching your products to make sure that you are not losing anything based on the additional scaling, which you're not. So I want to jump back into growth in a minute, but before I do, talk to me about next year. What's your expectation? How much have you raised so far? How much are you going to raise? Because obviously you've raised the 6 million because you've deployed the 6 million, but it's a different kind of raise because it's your product. And then how much you're going to raise next year, and what percentage increase in revenue do you expect next year?
All right, thank you very much for that. We project, with the current funds that we've established to be able to, double down, double up actually by 10x growth over the next 12 months. And that would translate to an annual recurring revenue of about $3 million US as we continue to hit the numbers in that sense. Now, to be very frank, we're talking about revenue to us in terms of net, not disbursement. Obviously, disbursement would be much more than that on a monthly basis. But revenue, annual recurring revenue, by the end of the next 12 months should actually be over $3 million US. Our user base obviously should also cross 30,000. Now, I'm also very careful because people don't understand when I say MSMEs and farmers. Today, we are able to disburse input financing through our partners to the farmers, because those ones don't currently have the capacity to come on board. But for the MSMEs, they are the ones who have the capacity to be fully on board. And whenever I say 39,000 active users, I'm referring to the MSMEs space, while I'm talking about 69,000 farmers for these farmers that we support. So the goal is to be able to double up these numbers for the MSMEs to over 100,000 active users, and then take it to 1 million. We should be able to achieve that within the next 3 to 4 months for the 100,000 goals. And then for the farmers, we want to be able to also do even much more for them, across Nigeria. We are signing on new partners who can allow us to be able to do that. And we're also working with the state governments. Some have signed up to be able to support maybe 1,000 farmers, 2,000 farmers over the next 12 months, depending on the various states that we're currently working with. In terms of, we're also working with this government to be able to ensure that food is secured in their states, and ensure that the farmers also have a track record of ensuring that they are able to maximize their yield. Thank you.
And what's so interesting about this is, like, again, if ever anyone has heard me talk through this, you'll notice that I repeat a lot. Horizon 1, Horizon 2, Horizon 3. Horizon 1, you build a beautiful product. They're doing it, right? You build beautiful messaging so that the customer understands the differentiation. They're doing it, right? You build a growth loop so you can make sure that you have this way to be able to access more and more and more customers at a very low cost of acquisition that gives you greater return on the other side. They're doing it, right? And all of this should be able to provide a multiple on previous year's revenue so that you have a scaling business that's preparing for escape velocity. Then Horizon 2 is all about building the systems and raising the money to make sure that you can then take that to the next level. And then it's like, okay, what is the next level? It's not Horizon 3 yet. Horizon 3 is a company that bears no resemblance to Horizon 1. No resemblance. Doesn't even look like it, right? It's like Apple, when they were doing computers. Apple are now a monopoly that is a marketplace whereby they steal 30% from every penny being spent by anybody on the App Store, right? Amazon was books at the beginning. Amazon is now one of the biggest logistical giants on the planet, right? Tradelenda is starting out in financing. What they will become in Horizon 3 is something that will transform the way consumers and finance interact with each other. But they don't need to solve that right now. Actually, you shouldn't rush to solve that at the beginning, because you should be focused on your growth loop, your product, your lovable product, and then getting that to the next level. This piece is about being able to create the systems to level up to the next level. And so I love that as you built the trust, as we talked about, like as you're building the trust and the Trojan horse and everything to go out, you're now using that to start selling to a bigger customer. So now you're like, okay, we actually have tremendous value to local governments rather than them continually having to give out grants or loans that they can't get paid back because they're shitty at doing loans, or having to hope that people survive, all of the stuff that gets them into power the next time around. We solve that problem. Actually, you're like the greatest lobbyist there's ever been, because just by you coming in and being able to provide your technology to deploy money that they previously would have wasted and lost tens of millions of dollars, now they get to look like heroes, because thousands upon thousands of hard-working local nationals are going to be able to build up incredible businesses thanks to that beautiful, wonderful, incredible government and powered by Tradelenda. That's the plan, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, you're going to turn governments into unpaid affiliates. God, I love you. That's so awesome. That's so awesome. And that's what you can do when you build an amazing, great product which has been properly thought through. Your value to people transcends so far beyond, oh, we're going to pay you 5% or 10% if you refer a product. I will allow you to stay in power if you use our product. That's the way we're going to play this game. And so what countries do you, so here's the good news and the tough news, are the news that you just have to like bear in mind with the logistical breaking through, is your message is now so far above where it was at the beginning. So how do you get that message out to governments? How do you choose the right governments to be able to do it with? And how do you manage what will be a monster scaling up? Because if you get a government that comes back to you, if suddenly Nigeria says, hey, you know what? We want you to do this whole thing in Lagos, you suddenly need 50, 60, 70 people to do that. So how do you manage what could be one of the most monumental growth in the companies that you've ever had or maybe ever will have in the future?
Okay, so for us, we strongly believe in investing in our people. We believe that people are the ones that get the jobs or gets their hands dirty and make things happen. And in terms of as the CEO, as well as my other co-founder, we kind of lead at that forefront. But what we've been doing over the last few months is to also attract, more senior executive hires, who can also join us. We also have a project lead, who handles most of this engagement, with these various government and other bodies who are interested in not just throwing money around, but actually seeing and tracking the impact, that this money or these funds have for these small businesses. And then over a 12-month period, you can see a well-documented, report, as well as what number of jobs were created, or how they were able to increase their standard of living, or what economic output, that they can actually, give out to their various communities. And this is what we've been doing also over the last few months too with some of this body. But if you look back to even last year, we had various events that actually brought all these policy makers together, both the government and also other, finance companies who are interested in supporting these small businesses, to come and see, some of the, businesses that we showcased across various, states in Nigeria. We had one in Lagos being our head office, our base location, and then we had others, in other states too. And that actually helped, some of these, bodies and also the government agencies to see the importance of these small businesses in terms of local productions, in terms of distributions, in terms of various other opportunities, which they have actually not looked into prior to the time that we had those, programs.
I want to really underline something that you do so well and is so fascinating to me, like from the positioning of behavioral psychology and how to get a product out to market. A lot of the time people would say to me, here's my products and here's my benefits. I'll be like, well, they're not benefits, they're features. And they'll be like, no, they're benefits because we've created it with the best team. Yeah, it's a feature. And we had and what we did was we made sure that the product was, fit for purpose. No, it's a feature. And even when I asked you the question about like, how do you deal with governments? My expectation was like a relatively base answer of, we're going to hire really great government people and our government people are going to engage with the government as well. But you didn't say that. You said exactly the same answer as when I asked you about your product to the consumers. And I said, what are you doing with the product with the consumers? And you said, well, and these weren't your words, but they were the words that I heard. And you said, well, it's not so much about the product, it's more about the trust that we build. We're in the trust building business. And the way that we build trust is we firstly facilitate it and make it really easy for them to be able to use us. And then we have great systems in the background to be able to monitor and watch them. But then we create credit scores. So people will almost become as addicted to us as they are with TikTok, watching their credit scores, which encourage them to be incredibly well behaved as far as paying back the loan, which builds our trust with the people who are giving us the loan. And what's fascinating about the question that I just asked you is you just said exactly the same thing with the government. I said to you, what are you going to do the governments? Because governments are really hard and they're a pain in the ass. And like, I don't know how you're going to be able to like scale up. And you did not say, I'm going to hire people. What you said was, we're going to build a research agency. That's what you said to me. You said, governments don't want someone to sell to them. What government wants are organizations that can support them and help them with the data that is going to be able to reinforce a use case that is going to be of assistance to them in the future. They want partners. And I'm telling you, I hardly ever hear that these days. Most of what I talk about on this live stream are tactics that help us sell. We do more emails, we do more LinkedIn, we do a little bit of social, maybe we do some paid media. But I love the direction that you've taken this, which is a trust-based organization. And every single solution that you're ever trying to either incorporate, build, or even upsell is always based on building trust and a relationship first, so that people are appreciative of you becoming their partner rather than you sell to them. And I don't know if you know how important that is, but it's absolutely huge, because these governments, these organizations will want to be a part of you all the time. So trust is like literally the only thing that matters in this market when it comes to building a long-lasting organization that doesn't just get to a unicorn because you raised a ton of money. It gets to a unicorn because the people want to use your product more than they want to use other people's products. I think it's huge, like really huge. I don't even have any other comment. I just think it's huge what you've said. Actually, I do have another question, because this is very, very, very brilliant. And you're breaking through the noise of nobody else doing this. Everybody else is just trying to sell. Was this an intentional strategy, or was it just something that you did it because it was naturally the way that you engage with people and you just found it to be working?
Well, one thing we do is to listen to what our users, really want, because we're not building, for any other person than them, right? So we've also understood the importance, in terms of, carrying along all various stakeholders. And in that process of trying to carry along various stakeholders, and building that, reputation in the industry. Tradelenda is a name, when you come to the MSME space here in Nigeria, that when you mention, everybody, kind of knows that brand. And we wanted, not just to be all about taking, but also about giving. So we looked for various means, to give also back to these various people. And one of those handshakes that we saw was actually, working with the government to give enabling environment, because if we are trying to finance them and policies are, working against these small businesses, we would actually be losing money. So we decided to take the better position of lobbying, or perhaps, working with these, government institutions to be able to create an enabling environment for them. And in the process of doing that, they would then see the need to also work with us to do more for the small businesses that they have across their various communities. So that's really what brought about the approach.
Incredible. Okay, so let's finish up in the last minute. You all get it. This is how you build the unicorns. Like, no more crying about, oh, I can't raise money and market's really hard. You build a great company because you build a great company. That's all. And if you build a great company and you're open about it and you start building a trust-based organization where you're transparent and you're continually trying to help your partners, you will grow. It's impossible not to if you have a great product. And that's why Tradelenda are absolutely smashing it right now, and why they'll raise a great Series A next year. But tell me, plans for next year from a raise perspective. How much are you going to raise, and what do you need?
Okay, so we're looking to do, about the 20 million Series A round. That's, some of the target that we're looking at. But that is aside from other liquidity providers in terms of the debt handshakes that we intend to sign, which will take us to over 100 million, because we also intend to scale into other markets aside from Nigeria, which is our immediate market today. We've strategically positioned ourselves, with various conversations ongoing with some partners, and also possible acquisition means, in markets like Ghana, Kenya, and even Rwanda. So as we continue to make efforts in that direction, we are continuing in terms of growth here in Nigeria, so that we can be able to have that, market dominance, across all regions in Nigeria, and then prepare ourselves for scale into other regions.
I like that word, dominance. Yeah, look, what can I say? You're a fucking legend. You're doing amazing. You're building out an incredible organization. You're doing literally everything that we talk about, you do, which puts you in the driving seat. Oh, man, I'm so happy we invested in you, and we're going to keep supporting you all the way. Next part of your journey is going to be one of the most special parts, and it's going to be an absolute joy to watch. Everybody, you just watched a unicorn in the making. My friend, let's continue and build this thing forward.
Thank you very much, Brian. Thank you for all you do for all your portfolio companies like ours. Thank you.
You got it.